Hello, there's no greater message, no greater gift that can be proclaimed to somebody or given to somebody than the message of who and whose they are. We talk a lot about in Focus and the mission that Kathleen and I are on about proclaiming the gospel to people. What do we mean by that, and why? Why do we need to do that? St. Paul 6 talks about that unless the name, the teaching, the message, and the kingdom of Jesus of Nazareth, unless that is proclaimed, there is no true evangelization that is done. When we proclaim the gospel, the good news, the kerygma, that is what we do. We proclaim Jesus of Nazareth, and in so doing, we proclaim who and whose we are. Why am I telling you this? I think it's not just something that we as missionaries should do, but every baptized Christian is called to proclaim the message and the person of Jesus Christ. And it's something that I want to just challenge you to do today, because I think it's something that, again, it's not just college students that need to hear this, but even in my life, just noticing the other day, a couple weeks ago, Luke Thomas was having a massive temper tantrum as he was going to bed, and nothing seemed to calm him down. And I walked into his room and I sat him on my lap as he was crying, and I just started sharing the story with him, the greatest story, the most important thing that could ever be told to my son, and that was the gospel. And as I proclaimed the gospel to him, slowly his tears stopped, his crying ceased, and he calmed down and just heard this truth proclaimed over him. And I think it's a powerful thing that we can do as we're getting together with family over the holidays, is to think about, how can I proclaim the gospel to people? And so what do I mean by the gospel? Well, the beginning lines of the Catechism put it really well, where it says, God, infinitely perfect and blessed in himself, in a plan of sheer goodness, freely created man to make him share in his own blessed life. For this reason, at every time and every place, God draws close to man. We were made for a relationship. We were made to be with our Creator in a way that no other part of creation was. We were made in God's image and likeness, and we were called to live like Adam and Eve by walking with God as they did in the garden. And we were made for this perfect union with our Father as sons and daughters. You are a son or daughter of God. That's what you were made for. And it's only this that we can truly know who we are. But the reality is this, is that in giving us freedom, the capacity and ability to love, we're also given the freedom to reject God. And that is from our first parents. That is what every man has done. St. Paul talks about in the Romans that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that the wages of sin is death. The reality is this, is that even though we were made for this relationship with God, that we have turned away from him. And it's not just that, that's a bad thing, and it hurts God. It not just hurts us, but it kills us. It brings about a real death, that without this sanctifying grace that we have, there's no way that we can be with the source of life, God our Father. There's nothing that we can do to get back. And here's the thing, is that the dilemma is this, is that we are not who we were created to be. We were created to be with God. But at our birth, we have this stain of original sin. There's this gap between us and the Father that we cannot bridge. And that's why it's attributed to Fulton Sheen. God had a plan to bring us back. He said, Fulton Sheen talked about how God didn't come to earth, Jesus didn't come to this earth to make bad people good. He came to make dead people alive. And as the Catechism continues in that same paragraph, he says, when the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son as Savior and Redeemer. The reality is this, that we were made for this relationship, and even though there's nothing that we can do to bridge that gap that was caused by sin, that cut us off from the source of life, God sent his only Son, that we might come to know him, to walk with him, and that he could redeem us, that he could bring us back to the Father through his death on the cross, through giving us the sanctifying grace. By being a man and by being God, he was able to bridge the gap that we could not. And it is because of this that we are called back into the family of God, that we can actually be brought back into God's family, that we can be once again called sons and daughters of God through baptism, through entrance into the church, through accepting what Jesus has done for us by his death and by his resurrection and ascension. And what we invite college students to do, and what we invite you to do right now, is to think about the ways that the Lord has worked in your life, the ways that he has called you back to him, from sin into this new life, through your baptism, through moments of grace. And I want to invite you and take the opportunity to recommit to putting him at the center of your life. To say that, Lord, you've given me such a good gift, and there's nothing that I could do to return it except for to give you my life, to give you everything that I am, and to put you at the center of everything that I do. And I know, Lord, that in so doing, that you will have a great plan for me, and I will finally know and be able to live in the experience of who I am and whose I am as a child of the Father. So this Christmas, I want to encourage you that as y'all gather around the tables and you meet new family that you haven't seen in a while, or you're talking to your children, have you proclaimed the gospel to them? Have you proclaimed this truth about who they are? And have you invited them into this relationship with Jesus Christ that can satisfy us? It's the only thing that can satisfy us. Know that I'm praying for you. Know that you are a good son, a good daughter of the Father, and you are worth very much. And the Lord loves you, and he wants to draw close to you during this season. Hope you have a blessed Advent, and I'll be praying for you. God bless.